Now, let's start by telling you that the House of Representatives Ad Hoc Committee on River State Oversight has invited the state's sole administrator, retired Vice Admiral Ibok Ete-Abbas, for a meeting on Thursday, April 17. The decision was taken just a day after the committee was constituted by Speaker Tajuddin Abbas as its members held their inaugural meeting to examine preliminary reports and review the state of security in the state. Chaired by House Majority Leader Professor Julius E. Hongwever, many view the committee as a soft landing of sorts for the declaration of a state of emergency by President Bola Tinubu, which has been widely condemned as illegal and unconstitutional. Meanwhile, the National Patriotic Coalition has urged President Bola Tinubu to caution the sole administrator in River State, Vice Admiral Ibok Ete-Abbas, over his alleged excesses in the discharge of his duties. Speaking at a press conference in Lagos, the National Coordinator of Activists for Good Governance, Declan Ihekere, and the Secretary of the group, Akintunde Adedeji, said the deliberate actions of the sole administrator are inimical to the sustenance of Nigeria's democracy. The coalition urged the sole administrator to take advantage of the committee, the House of the Representatives set up to oversee the legislative duties in River State.
The probe, though, denied that Mr. Governor Fubara and the Deputy Governor should appear before him to explain why some appointments were made or were not made. We've just been briefed a few minutes ago that they have denied it. But in every story, there could be an altar of truth. So we want to believe that that denial is a perpetual denial. But if it surfaces again that the duly elected governor of a state who is just being suspended is being summoned by a sole administrator that does not have the mandate of the people, will hold him responsible. As far as we are concerned, the governor of Rivers State have not lost his immunity. And as far as we are concerned, the sole administrator does not have any immunity. And so, the democratic setting in Rivers State should be respected to the latter. It should be respected. And so we are calling on Mr. President to make sure that the sole administrator does not go against the tenets.
Now, joining us from the nation's seat of power, Abuja, is Dr. Sam Amadi. He is the Executive Director of Abuja Schools of Social and Political Thought. Dr. Amadi, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, sir.
Thank you. I'm actually direct.
Great. Now, Dr. Amadi, slowly but surely, it's clear the emergency rule is here to stay, for lack of a better word. Now, when the ad hoc committee meets with the sole administrator on Thursday, what do you expect will happen?
Well, first, the ad hoc committee is led by seasoned court professor, who obviously is part of politics, issues about democratic accountability. First, the committee should press that even though his appointment is questioned to this point, so again, let's consider the legality. His job is to preserve land. Because the purpose for the president invoking constitutional power is that there is actually a threat, a present danger, a threat to land. So the mandates of the sole administrator is to take actions to preserve.
I must stop you there. My apologies, Dr. Amadi. Dr. Amadi, we're going to come back to you, but I please beg that you take out the Bluetooth device that you have connected to your phone, and when we get back to you, we'll continue on that questioning so we can have your answers given to us clearly. Thank you very much, Dr. Amadi, but we'll be coming back to you. Now, over to security matters now. Let's start in the North Central, where a wave of killings appears to be spreading beyond Plateau State into neighboring Benue State. Suspected herdsmen are believed to have launched a fresh attack on Otobi community in Akpa district of Otukpo local government area of Benue State on Tuesday evening. At the moment, several lives have been lost while hundreds of persons are displaced. The lawmakers representing Otukpo-Akpa constituency in the Benue State House of Assembly, Kennedy Angbo, confirmed the attack, which he said began around 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday. Angbo disclosed that 3 corpses had already been recovered, with many more people feared killed. This came hours after similar attacks in Gialuwa village in Gwe West local government area, resulting in the displacement of numerous residents. And now we'll be returning to our earlier conversation with Dr. Amadi, and I was asking, Dr. Amadi, let's check your audio first of all. Thank you very much. Welcome back, Dr. Amadi.
Thank you. Can you hear me very well?
Much better. Thank you very much, sir. Now, sir, I was asking what your take is on the rule, seeing that the ad hoc committee has met with, when the ad hoc committee meets with the sole administrator, what you expect to happen.
Okay, I think first, like I said, the committee should let the sole administrator know the remit of his mandate. So primarily, his job is to ensure that that is, if it is true that there was a likelihood of breakdown of law and order in Rivers State, which many of us say there's none, his first job is to make sure that does not happen. And again, to preserve the peace. So they should impress on him that he is not a new governor of Rivers State. He is an administrator appointed to intervene in an emergency, namely to protect the peace for first phase for 6 months. And so some of the activities, actions, like for example, appointing local government chairman, whether as caretaker, is totally ultra-vires. Again, it goes against the Supreme Court that has said you just can't have even the executive governor themselves appoint. So if the executive governor elected cannot appoint local government chairman, why would the sole administrator, whose job would be to conduct minimal governance, to continue to keep the state running and to address the security challenges whilst the political crisis is resolved by political actors, namely the president, the governor, who is now in sort of limbo, and maybe other political actors, in of FCT and so. So the first thing is to get him back to reality. That is not the elected governor. It's not a new governor. It's just a man called him. He's actually an agent of the president. You see, the state of education is the power of the president to take emergency, extraordinary measures when there's a clear breakdown of law and order. And that's why we say what happened in Rivers State is not a breakdown of law and order. In those circumstances, the work of the sole administrator is like a commander, a military commander, to restore order, to carry out minimal governance that will allow order. And after order has been restored, then the suspended political structure comes up. He shouldn't be making those appointments. He shouldn't be acting as if he's the governor. He should focus basically as the president's agent. Is somebody misappointed and said, yeah, go and see for me. So that's the first thing the committee should let him know. And
so
to ask him to focus.
In addition to that, it also appears that the sole administrator was initially meant to report to the committee of the Federal Executive Council, but that seems not to be the case anymore. But just do tell us what difference this actually makes.
I think there's also a confusion here. The National Assembly inserted itself wrongly in my view. For example, the National Assembly has the powers to make law for states when the State Assembly cannot act due to some circumstances. But when you have suspended the whole democratic order, in my constitutional reading, the National Assembly has no such power. Now, what should happen? That's why it's like a military rule. The State Administration should report to the president, who has taken over. The president has dismantled democratic institutions and taken over democratic institutions in line with the Constitution, even though we argue that those constitutions were not met. The National Assembly has sanctioned it. There's no power of the National Assembly to make laws for Rivers State. There's no more lawmaking. If there are going to be regulations, it is actually the president who will issue them based on executive power to make regulations in a state of emergency. It's equivalent of where the president declares a state of emergency overhead, pandemic, and he now takes over. In that declaration, there will be regulations as to what happened. Or you start by, you must curfew between this hour. Those are laws. So I think there's a confusion here. National Assembly does not make law for Rivers State in this circumstance. If, for example, there is a breakdown, the legislature cannot meet, and the National Assembly begin to make law. Those laws will not be laws made on behalf of that assembly because that assembly is truncated for whatever reason, and the governor will sign those laws as if they are laws made by the
so
assembly.
Dr. Amadi,
but in this case,
Dr. Amadi, sorry to cut you, but we are on a very short timeline here. I wanted to point something out. Now, the sole administrator had announced he was going to, he announced he was in the final stages of the budget. This was about 2 weeks ago. But up until now, it doesn't seem that that has seen the light of day. So there is a bit of conflict here. How can a committee of non-River State people actually guide a non-indigenous administrator to meet the needs of River State people? What's your take on that?
My view is that this further reinforces the illegality and the senselessness of what's going on. I think what should happen now is clear there's no threat to insecurity. Mr. President should truncate the life of the sole administrator and restore back democracy. These are all patchwork. There's no coherence, there's no constitutional justification. You cannot set a committee to go and supervise and direct how rivers to be governed. The sole administrator is acting under the parent power, which is constitutional, even though misapplied. That's the only person who can take that decision and take it with parent approval. Let's not pretend. That's why it's extraordinary. There's nothing that justifies what's going on in rivers now. Because in the time, the Constitution foresees where there's total breakdown of land order. They're going to make laws. So it's just to conserve that law, and the parent imposes this sort of emergency. It didn't happen. Now, having made this announcement illegally, on my view, or without justification, the president should truncate it. Otherwise, we are running into deeper Machiavellian dance of illegality. The House will set up a committee that's not indigenous. There's no constitutional backing for a committee of the House to go to rivers and direct the sole administrator on what to do. The sole administrator who is acting under authority, and then the people in the state, you pretend to make law for them. That's not what the Constitution says. So I think at this point, we're running deeper into a terrible constitutional mess. And the answer is to pause and admit that even if there was a threat to land order, that threat is no more. It's now time to truncate the sole administrator and restore back democracy in River State. Let's forget the political outcome, whether that governor will help Tinubu's election or not. That's not what the Constitution foresees. The Constitution foresees whether it's actual at war or invasion or such a big calamity that the country could, or part of the country could be in actual real danger.
Well,
at
Dr.
this
Amadi,
point, there's no real danger. There's no real danger here.
Dr. Amadi, I think you've said it all, and I'd like to say thank you very much for giving us your 2 pence on the matter. Thank you. Now, still on the rise in cases of terrorism, Boko Haram insurgents have unleashed terror on the quiet communities of Banga and La in Hong local government area of Adamawa State, killing at least 6 people, with 1 person missing and significant destruction. Among the casualties was a local vigilante who died after a bomb explosion during an attempt to secure the area. In Banga, 2 men were shot dead and a woman reportedly died after falling during the chaos, while in nearby La, 2 more individuals were also killed under yet unclear circumstances. The assault also saw a police van from Garaha blown up by an improvised explosive device. Fortunately, all occupants had exited the vehicle moments before the explosion, narrowly escaping death. The Nigerian military and police have yet to release an official statement, though local sources confirm that troops responded to the attack. Now let's talk about the resurgence of terrorism in Borno State, where Governor Babagana Zulum has raised concerns over the rising threat of foreign terrorists infiltrating Nigeria, specifically through Borno. The governor also raised alarm about the transfer of high-level military equipment from the northeast to other regions, making the northeast vulnerable. In the same vein, the chief whip of the Senate, Mohammed Mungunu, has announced that additional security personnel and military hardware will be deployed to the region. This follows a high-level meeting between Governor Babagana Zulum and senior security chiefs in Abuja. Earlier, the senator argued that President Bola Tinubu should have declared a state of emergency in Nigeria's security and economy sectors, and not in Rivers State. Now, joining us to discuss more on the resurgence of Boko Haram in Borno is the Honorable Commissioner for Information and Internal Security in Borno State, Professor Usman Ta. Professor, you're welcome. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Now, what immediate steps is the state government taking to counter the reported infiltration of foreign terrorists from Borno's borders? And if you can please do us a favor and explain exactly where these foreign terrorists are coming in from.
Thank you very much. Let me make it clear that the Boko Haram insurgency is a transnational phenomenon, in the sense that we have in the rank and file of the Boko Haram terrorists what appears to be militants who are not only Nigerians, but many of them are from neighboring countries and further afield, from Mali, from Burkina Faso and other places. So that is what is meant by foreign terrorists that are joining the rank and file of the Boko Haram in order to carry out attacks.
And what about the government's response to these foreign terrorists?
It's a federal matter. The federal government is, we are aware that the federal government is taking all the necessary actions in order to safeguard Nigeria's territorial borders. The relevant authorities, including the armed forces, the police, the immigration, are working hard in order to up their ante. They are using technologies now in order to, detect, especially, precision cameras and drones in order to detect the entry of foreigners into Nigeria's borders. But let me admit that this is a very difficult matter because Nigeria's boundaries, and indeed boundaries all over Africa, are porous. So we have smugglers, we have terrorists, we have insurgents, going in and out almost undetected. That appears to be an African-wide problem, and we're aware that the platforms of the African Union and ECOWAS and the Later Basin Commission, countries, member countries are working hard in order to safeguard borders. So it's both a national security problem, but as well as a regional security problem. And as far as our knowledge goes, the armed forces and our other security agencies in Nigeria are enhancing their capacity for detection of foreigners into the country. But this is a very difficult matter.
Okay. Now you speak about enhancement of capacity. Exactly how is this being done? Let's talk about the security apparatus on ground and also the security reinforcements that is expected as they're advancing these capacity, especially in light of Senator Mongono's announcement.
Well, one of the capacities is technological capacity. It has become apparent that putting boots on the ground, is no longer the panacea for detecting, the movement of people in our territories. We have to use more of technologies, drones, and cameras with night vision capabilities, for example, are now being deployed more and more. In the arsenals of the armed forces of Nigeria, these technologies are featuring now. And very soon we will get it right.
Now, is the state in support of Senator Ndume's call for a state of emergency on security and welfare?
I am not aware that Senator Ndume called for a state of emergency, but even if he has called for it, we have experienced state of emergency in the past. And the state of emergency that Borno experienced in the past is not like that, the one for River State. The subnational state was allowed to function. Only the military, operational protocols were enhanced, and the people were, disallowed from movement, and curfews were put in place. That was the state of emergency that we experienced in the past. And even if you may ask for it, that appears to be what he may be asking for. But I am not sure whether he asked or not. But we have experienced state of emergency in the past, where the subnational entity was allowed to function and indeed serve as a scaffold, as a supporting pillar for the state of emergency. And at that time, the state did not, the Borno state government did not object to it, and it went well in the sense that Boko Haram was degraded significantly at that time.
Professor Ta, what about the people of Borno State, especially southern Borno? What assurance can you give them regarding their security, especially those in the 7 highly affected local government areas?
Southern Borno or Northern Borno?
Northern Borno, sir.
Northern Borno?
Yes.
Northern Borno.
Yes.
Well, in Northern Borno, we have 3 local governments that are not properly recaptured by adequately recaptured by the armed forces, in the sense that in 2 local governments, namely Abadam and Gudumbali, we don't have a human population there, only military presence in Abadam, for instance. In Marte, we have a situation where human population is not there, only military presence. So where we have of the 700 plus local government areas in Nigeria, we have 3 local governments that are not effectively in the hand of the Nigerian state. That is an assault on the Nigerian state. And I think the earlier we set up and recapture those local governments, the better. Apart from that, majority of the local government areas in Northern Borno, including Ganzei, Monguno, Mobar, those local governments, they are fully occupied. We have full operational presence of the armed forces, and people have been resettled. In fact, His Excellency, the Executive Governor, has promised to resettle a lot of the villages and towns in these liberated local governments. But our grouse is with the fact that 3 local governments remain unoccupied, some of them in the hands of the insurgents. I mean, in the sense that we have active presence of the insurgents, and people are not just resettled, and that is our complaint.
Professor Tab, my final question to you is, I'd like to know about the state of collaboration between the state government and also the federal government when it comes to security in Borno State.
Well, the Borno State is a subnational entity, one of the 36 states in the federation. We are absolutely supportive, and our loyalty to the federal government is unalloyed and unconditional. And as a subnational entity, we know that security is an exclusive matter for the federal government. But security is everybody's business. So in the past few years, the Borno State government has consistently provided logistic support to the armed forces. We have also consistently supported logistic support to all the security agencies. And our loyalty is 100%, if not more. So that is, there is full collaboration between the Borno State government and the federal government, both in strategic and in operational terms.
Well, Professor Usman Tar, I want to say thank you very much and good evening to you, sir.
Thank you.
Now to politics. And Ikeja High Court on Wednesday has declared that the removal of Mudashiru Obasa as Speaker of the Lagos State House of Assembly was illegal and unconstitutional. Justice Yetunde Pinheiro declared that the plenary session was held in Obasa's absence, which deemed it invalid, as it lacked proper authorization. The court emphasized that only the House leadership had the authority to convene such a session, not the chief whip. Consequently, the court awarded Obasa 500,000 naira in damages for the unlawful removal and the psychological embarrassment caused to him. Former Governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, has petitioned the Inspector General of Police over alleged defamatory statements made against him by the suspended senator representing Kogi Central Senatorial District in the National Assembly, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. In the petition, Bello called on the Nigerian Police Force to invite Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan to substantiate her allegation against him with evidence. The former governor has also written to Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan demanding retraction and public apology over defamatory statements made against him in 2 national dailies or face legal consequences. And former president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Dr. Olisa Agbakoba, has expressed worry over the sexual harassment claims made by Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan against Senate President Godswill Akpabio. According to Agbakoba, the allegations contain major contradictions that must be properly examined. In a press briefing with journalists, Agbakoba, who is Akpabio's counsel, stated that Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan believes she was sexually assaulted by Senate President Godswill Akpabio on December 8, 2023. However, just 1 day later, on December 9, 2023, she officially supported the Senate President on both her Instagram and X accounts. He went on to say that sexual harassment charges, especially in governance institutions, must be handled carefully to preserve the integrity of democratic institutions.
it's something that you cannot necessarily say, this is like stealing. This is the evidence of sexual harassment. You've got to take the entire picture into account in determining whether a case of sexual harassment is made out. Which is why, as I said, her story is not to be believed or disbelieved at this stage. The point here is, can Senator Natasha clarify, that's the issue, clarify the difference in her behavior and attitude on 2 days, back to back. That's all. A court action is not the best. Do you know the amount of time this has taken in the context of deviating from governance? We have big issues in Nigeria. You know, and I was on TV yesterday talking about the big issues. So I don't think that Natasha, Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan's story should distract from governance.
Now to safety and the environment. Stakeholders in Nigeria's road safety sector recently gathered for a town hall meeting to highlight the dangers of drunk driving and its consequences. The Safe Roads, Don't Drink and Drive campaign aims to raise awareness and reduce the number of alcohol-related crashes. News Central's Igbalani Omoni has more.
Drunk driving remains a major cause of road accidents in Nigeria. However, the lack of proper forensic sobriety and toxicology testing at crash sites makes it difficult to quantify the problem. To tackle these, the Federal Road Safety Corps, in collaboration with Pernod Ricard Nigeria, organized a sensitization town hall.
You better tell even your partner not to drink and drive, because if you are sane and the other road user is insane, his own insanity could cause your own sanity into destruction. So there is need to let members of the public understand the fact that they should not drink and drive, so that they don't remember that day that the man went out and never came back in.
It's not a contradictory message in any way for us, because again, imagine a situation where the consumers are drunk and they get into accidents or whatever. Do we still have a consumer? We don't. So it's a win-win for the society.
The Federal Road Safety Corps Lagos State Commander outlined the penalties for offenders as driving under influence attracts a fine of 5,000 naira and addressed the issue of alcohol sales in motor parks.
Directly or indirectly, that person is a dangerous driver. So you put dangerous driving and driving under influence. These are two-in-one violation. And dangerous driving violation is 50,000 naira. We have agreed with members of NURTW that there won't be sales of alcohol in motor parks. However, you cannot overemphasize the fact that some people are always finding their way around the sachet drinks, which we're already engaging even the distillers that they should avoid the production of sachet drinks. So far, it is not within our purview to arrest them, but we relate with other agencies like the NDLEA and probably the police to ensure that they have been removed from the various parks.
Various stakeholders took turns to advise and enlighten the public on the available measures to combat the issue.
If you are a parent here, we will appreciate it that you don't keep a bar in your home.
Please, if you know that you don't bear, like it is said, get a cab if you must go, or sleep there.
The message of drink reasonably for us as a professional driver is not there. Is totally absent yourself when you are on duty.
The stakeholders also encouraged the community to engage the FRSC mobile app, which enables users to report incident and ensures enforcement to prevent loss of lives and property. All stakeholders committed to promoting safe driving and reducing incidents involving alcohol and drugs on Nigerian roads. In Lagos, for News Central, Igbalani Omoni.
The Kogi State government says it is setting its sight on an ambitious target of generating 1 billion naira in revenues from signage and advertisement by 2026. This is part of what it terms a broader strategy to boost the state's internally generated revenue and reduce dependency on federal allocations. The disclosure was made by Commissioner for Information and Communications Kingsley Fowle during a management meeting with heads of agencies under the ministry in Lokoja. Fowle described the appointment of Richard Osashei as the general manager of Kogi State Signage and Advertising Agency as a masterstroke, noting that it would reposition the agency for greater efficiency and impact. And the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority has raised concerns over the potential impact of new U.S. trade policies on Nigeria's oil revenue. Speaking at the State House Meet the Press series in Abuja, the authority's Chief Executive Officer, Farouk Ahmed, made this recent tariff, or rather said the recent tariff announcement by U.S. President Donald Trump is fueling greater volatility in the global oil market. He warned that Nigeria's fiscal stability remains highly vulnerable to external economic shocks, calling for the establishment of strategic buffers and an urgent push for stronger local refining capacity.
So the crude oil and petroleum products market continues to have a downward trajectory because of these inconsistencies and policies of the government of the United States. And the key aspect of it is the aspiration of the American president to ensure that the crude oil price or the oil price has come down to maybe crude oil price to come down below $50 a barrel. And that's why he encourages more exploration in this country. But when we look at it globally as a nation, it's not good for our economy because our revenue inflow is also impacted. If the crude oil price, like what happened previous Fridays ago, where it dropped in one day from about $73 a barrel to $60, you can see that in terms of our production of crude oil, our revenue is impacted severely. Because recently we just had a report from OPEC that Nigerian production has come down to about 1.4 million barrels a day. And then if we lose the price by $10, so you can see the negative impact to our economy, to our national reserves, as well as, of course, the strength of our naira.
The Financial Crimes Commission has launched a probe into a massive 1.3 trillion naira fraud linked to CryptoBank Exchange, a now collapsed digital investment platform. CBEX, run by foreign nationals and Nigerian partners, shut down on Monday, leaving thousands unable to access their funds. EFCC spokesperson Dele Oyewale confirmed investigations were already underway before the crash, with efforts now intensified in collaboration with Interpol. The platform, which promised 100% returns in 30 days, froze withdrawals earlier this month, then demanded fresh deposits for access. The SEC recently warned Nigerians against unregistered online trading platforms, emphasizing stricter enforcement under the new Investment and Securities Act. However, authorities have vowed to recover stolen funds and prosecute those responsible. Welcome back. Now, Amnesty International has accused Mozambican police of killing nearly 400 people during a violent crackdown on opposition protests following last October's disrupted election. In a new report released Wednesday, Amnesty cited eyewitness accounts and open-source data alleging excessive and indiscriminate force by police and military personnel and lack of accountability. The protests erupted after President Daniel Chapo's contested victory, which internal observers, or rather international observers, said was marred by irregularities. Rights groups say at least 388 people were killed over 3 months, with security forces firing metal pellets and live rounds into crowds, even from moving vehicles. One victim, a man, live-streaming police actions, was reportedly shot in the back. The government has yet to respond as international calls for accountability grow louder. In a surprise announcement, former Democratic Republic of the Congo President Joseph Kabila announced that he will be returning to the country. Reports suggest that he may arrive through the conflict-ridden eastern region, an area that has long been plagued by violence and instability. Kabila served as president from 2001 until 2019 before his legacy was marked by allegations of human rights abuses and political repression during his tenure. New Central's Bongani Sisiba tells us more.
The Democratic Republic of Congo former President Joseph Kabila recently announced his imminent return to his country, citing his deep concern for the escalating violence in the eastern region, an area he describes as being in critical danger.
We are ready to work, honestly work for peace, actively work for peace, and that was our attitude 22 years ago when we came to Sun City and signed the agreement. Our attitude today, being much more informed, is definitely to stand up again and be on the move.
The Eastern DRC has been plagued by violence for many years, with armed groups like M23, which some say it's backed by Rwanda, claims which President Paul Kagame has declined. However, there have been series of protests, DRC citizens calling out Rwanda to back off.
African leaders, we are dying. Have mercy on us. Come and join together. And my message to Kagame, what I'm saying is, me, I'm the one who's gonna come and take Kagame out where he is. That is what I'm saying. From today, you will see me, Kagame.
Meanwhile, former President Kabila claims to have national interest at heart. However, allegations persist that he may have ties to this very group M23. While former President Kabila's return may spark hope, for some it's fear. I had an opportunity to speak with a group of Congolese citizens currently living in exile in South Africa. Let's hear their thoughts on this political comeback.
He's a traitor for Congo. He's the one behind even the movement of 23 movement, but nowadays we know that Kabila is the one behind or what is happening in the eastern part of Congo.
He noticed that his intention is not to come back for peace. He's coming back for war.
While the former president has denied any involvement with the M23 group, the question remains, can he truly unite a nation so fractured by years of conflict?
But Kabila is there to support the rebels to kill again people in Congo, which is very, very bad as a former president.
He must work together with President Tshisekedi to bring peace for all those people who are killed every day. We are not happy to see our friends, our Congolese citizens dying every day because of the minerals. It's not right.
As the DRC crisis deepens, the coming days will be critical. In Johannesburg, for News Central, Bongani Siziba.
Britain's Supreme Court said the legal definition of a woman is based on a person's sex at birth, a landmark ruling with far-reaching implications to the bitter debate over trans rights. Now, in a win for Scottish gender-critical campaigners who brought the case to the UK's highest court, 5 London judges unanimously ruled the term woman and sex in the Equality Act 2010 refer to a biological woman and biological sex. The court added that the act also protected transgender people against discrimination.
The unanimous decision of this court is that the terms woman and sex in the Equality Act 2010 refer to a biological woman and biological sex. But we counsel against reading this judgment as a triumph of one or more groups in our society at the expense of another. It is not.
And China is showing unexpected resilience in the face of mounting pressure from Washington. New figures reveal the world's second-largest economy is off to a stronger start than expected in 2025, despite a looming tariff storm from the United States. For News Central, international correspondent Afia Hagen has more.
China's economy grew by 5.4% in the first quarter of 2025, beating market expectations and continuing an export-driven surge seen late last year. That's according to the country's National Bureau of Statistics, which says the economy had a steady and good start. Economists had predicted more modest growth of around 5.1%, but stronger than expected factory output and consumer spending gave China a head start, just before the full impact of President Donald Trump's harsh new tariffs kicked in. Officials admit the external environment is becoming more complex, but insist China has the strength and flexibility to weather the storm. The US tariffs, aimed in part at cracking down on fentanyl, now top 145%. Exports to the US are already declining, making up just 14.7% of China's total overseas sales last year, down from over 19% in 2018. China is diversifying, strengthening trade ties across Asia. President Xi Jinping is now on a week-long tour of Southeast Asia, pitching China as a stable global trade partner, while new leadership takes the reins in Beijing's trade ministry. But trouble may lie ahead. Economists at UBS and Goldman Sachs have downgraded China's growth forecasts, warning the tariffs could deliver a major shock to exports. The government is expected to respond with more spending and support for domestic consumption. Retail sales in March already rose nearly 6%, and industrial output jumped more than 7%. While the road ahead looks bumpy, Beijing is signalling it won't back down from its growth ambitions, determined to ride out the trade storm and keep its economy on track. For News Central, I'm Afia Hagen.
Business Now. Nigeria's economy is set for growth in 2025, fueled by agriculture, oil and financial services, with inflation expected to ease in the second half amid naira strengthening, FX inflows and policy support. Joshua Bamfo, partner at Anderson in Nigeria, stated that 2024 experienced clear macroeconomic stability despite some market stability. The naira showed gains against the dollar, impacting businesses, while CBN's interest rate hikes aimed at policy consistency also contributed to economic disruption.
So the business sector. We have three key markets that are extremely important for the performance of an economy. There's a market for goods and services. However, what we saw in that market was that prices for those goods and services continuously skyrocketed, as depicted in the inflation rate data. So by the end of the year, the inflation rate for that particular market was around 34.8. That is extremely high. Secondly,
and now sports. Kwara United and Nasarawa United have both advanced to the quarterfinal of the 2025 Presidential Federation Cup. In Benin City, Kwara United dominated National League side Solutions FC with a commanding 3-0 win. Goals from Junior Aimufua, Kabiru Mohammed and Ismaila Gata sealed the victory at the Samuel Ogbomudia Stadium. Meanwhile, in Aingba, Nasarawa United edged past Bayelsa United 5-3 on penalties after a 1-1 draw in regulation time. Anas Yusuf opened the scoring for Nasarawa in the 49th minute, but Yahaya Ibrahim equalized in the 61st minute for Bayelsa. Nasarawa held firm in the shootouts to clinch their quarter-final spot in the prestigious national competition. Now, Gabonese international footballer Aaron Bupenza has died at the age of 28 after reportedly falling from a building in China. The forward had joined Chinese club Zhejiang FC just this January from Romania's Rapid Bucharest. Bupenza earned 35 caps for Gabon and represented his country at the 2021 Africa Cup of Nations. Gabon's Football Federation announced his death on social media, remembering him as a great striker who made his mark during the African tournament. His career spanned multiple countries, including France, Portugal, Turkey, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United States. Gabon's president-elect called Bupenza a talented center-forward who brought honor to Gabonese football. And that's all this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories we brought your way. House of Reps Oversight Committee for River State has summoned sole administrator Ibok Ibas over emergency rule, and outrage is trailing massacres in Benue and Adamawa states only days after killings in Bassa, Plateau State. We also told you that Amnesty International has accused Mozambican police of killing nearly 400 people during crackdowns on opposition protests over disrupted elections. Now to remember, you may send your eyewitness reports to the WhatsApp numbers on your screens now. And do follow us on social media. We're at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and of course on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.